many fans you were in this year.
Hello, fellow disc golf enthusiasts, and welcome back to coverage of the PDGA European Tour. This is the first stop, the Pro Forester tournament at the Lagoda disc golf course in Varazdin, Croatia. We are bringing you round 2 back 9 FPO lead card coverage, brought to you by MDG Media. I'm Connor Wood, and once again with me, you saw him in the intro, Elias Luukkonen.
Hello guys, very excited to see this round 2 back 9. These players are trying to battle for position, hopefully stay on the lead card for the final round and put themselves in position to win.
We've reached the halfway point of the tournament as we battle towards this second 50%. We get started here on hole 10. Par 4, 188 meters. Players have the large guardian tree directly in front of the tree to contend with. You pass around that. As you then battle into this open field, you have 2 islands of hazard in the bottom right of your frame, as well as now in the bottom left of your frame. On either side, an awkward trapezoid of danger, let's call it. As you then battle over those and navigating around the trees, you have this basket tucked right before the mound, a big drive off the tee, and then a placement shot to fight through the gaps on the second.
Yeah, it's a long hole, and off the drive you really want to get as much distance as possible. The trouble really comes in only with the second shot. Nikola going with the powerful sidearm there that she has shown many times throughout this round, unfortunately turning it over into the hillside. She's in the middle of the fairway, but really not the distance she was looking for. Marianne going with the high left-handed hyzer, fighting towards the right side of the fairway, hitting the path and getting a big skip to the right, but still in good position. And actually being on the right side will open up the angle towards the basket, so she'll have a good chance for the birdie there.
As we see Katka also playing the hyzer slightly lower on the release, pushing forwards. She finds a similar skip, although not on the path, slightly softer finish, still positioning herself on the right side. One of the few holes that I'd say kind of favors the left-handed player off the tee here.
Absolutely, but even that advantage of the left-handed player is cut off with the approach that suits very well for the right-handed hyzer. But I feel like it's a fair hole, and overall I think it's a very fair course between the left and right-handed players.
And a lot of holes allowing you multiple gaps, different tunnels to try and hit. You can pick your shot, whatever you're comfortable with. As we see from Nikola, a high fighting hyzer. She asks for it to sit down, and just before the hazard island, she finds herself safe, probably circle 3, just outside circle 2, looking for another short approach.
That was a great position play there. Birgit going for a longer shot here. Although, maybe not a longer shot, but just the same position play there, just before the hazard, and they will have about 50 meters left to the basket from there.
Katka using some understability to have a sustained turnover in the flight. Looked like she cut rolled a little bit preemptively, I think just low on the height to complete the full fade. But still looking to be up there and safe. Marianne now also relying on some flip up. She finds the fade away from the basket here, but actually connects on the ground inside the circle. And I think stuck inside.
Yeah, I think she's just inside the edge of the circle 1 there, and you can see the power, being able to go with the power hyzer off the tee and then just a regular flat shot into the green. As we see Nikola, after the errant drive, being able to put it pretty much under the basket for the par. Katka almost giving it a bit of a run, just short of the basket, settles on the edge of the bullseye. Again, as we often see on this course, the green not offering many skips, so these hyzer angle shots are really going to stick well next to the basket. That's a picture-perfect approach there from Birgit.
Getting absolutely no skip, just as you mentioned it. Marianne here for birdie, just low on the cage. 2 fantastic shots, giving herself the opportunity. Nikola here for her par, manages to secure that. As we're looking now, I believe at a par frame, we see Katka short putt.
Very common score on this hole. Actually, this hole was not birdied once by the field. So par is really the score that you're going for on this one. Obviously, Marianne would have liked to make that putt, but hey, she's really not losing any strokes with a par there.
And she's been very solid off the tee. Her throwing looking really dialed in here in round 2. Making that lead card for the second day. She'll be feeling very good. Still holding that solo lead position. Not one where she lost any strokes to her competitors.
Very true. And it seems like Marianne has a bit of a distance advantage over the field, which is not the biggest advantage of this course, but certainly advantage.
Definitely some form there for her to attack with. Hole 11. Par 3, 87 meters. You have a tight gap in front of the tee to hit. Once you do, you need your disc to flip up to flat. For our left-handed players, they'll need to shape a soft turnover and ensure their height and fade is not too severe. We'll see Nikola on the tee first.
Very natural shape here for the right-handed player. Unfortunately, Nikola going left early. But if you can flip something up with the right hand, it gets to the basket quite effortlessly, actually. Marianne going with a touchy turnover shot there. You need really good angle control there. Going a bit left of the late gap of the fairway, but still inside the circle there. That's a great result. Katka
fought through absolutely everything on that left side.
Very
Fortunate,
true.
because the gaps there are very small. As Katka also finds some rough, I think not as forgiving there on the progress up the fairway. She'll need to be scrambling still before her putt.
Yeah, this hole really gives you a taste of what it can be like if you're off the fairway. As Birgit hits one of the initial trees of the tee, and you can really see how thick this rough can be if you're off the fairway. Fortunately, being able to advance a little bit down the fairway, hopefully having still a chance to save the bogey 4.
Katka here looking to shape a chopping forehand high anhyzer. I think not getting as much fade or as early of a fade as she would have liked to secure that shape towards the green.
And Nikola here showcasing that touch forehand with slow disc going anhyzer release. Great tree hit, was going way past the basket, but hits the tree next to the basket and sticks it right next to the bullseye. That's a great result there.
Birgit also playing the touch forehand approach with the low speed disc. I think maybe even caught those same branches there as they both settle just outside bullseye. Left with short putts. Katka shaping a hyzer finds, I believe, the same branches again. Just a magnet for the discs today here on hole 11.
Yeah, it's a great obstacle on the green. Another one of the more open greens on the course, as Birgit puts it in from 8 meters. That's a solid stroke.
The nice putt. We see Katka now taking her time, very routine oriented, and you see the results there for her. Dead center putt after significant scrambling. Those can be a little bit stressful if you've had some uneasy positions leading up to your putt. It's good to take a breath and center yourself, as we see Nikola do just that and secure her par.
Katka certainly the most experienced player out of this card. She has a good bit of experience from the larger competitions. As we see Marianne making a routine-looking 5-meter putt for the birdie there. That's a great one to get.
And the players will move to hole 12, a 106-meter par 3 with 2 gaps to hit initially off the fairway, about 3 meters wide at its widest. Once you break through, you hit this open field of a fairway with rough to the right side and a few trees on the left. You see this basket just a few meters away from that right side rough, really testing your precision on either the long drive or the upshot, requiring to keep it close to stay in the open.
This hole plays slightly longer than the said 106 meters because the end is a little bit uphill. Marianne really utilizing that distance, able to go with the driver, slight turnover, just inside the bullseye mark there. That's a great drive. This is also not a very commonly birdied hole, mostly for the distance. It plays very long because the ceiling of the initial gap is low and the basket is perched on this small mound. As we see Nikola going with a very understable hyzer flip. Unfortunately, just a little bit too low to the ground, but she'll have a good chance to get the par.
And Katka, perhaps a slightly too overstable of a disc as it doesn't fight forwards the whole way. It does fade out a little bit early, but she'll be left with a short and very manageable upshot. Birgit here getting a nice full flight, battling all the way up, still just shy of circle 2, but she's shown to have a good spin and pace to her putt. Could very well still be attacking from there.
Yeah, as we see Katka approaching towards the basket just outside the bullseye there. Marianne once again showing off that big distance she has, being able to get inside the circle on a hole that is hardly reachable by the other players.
Nice forehand approach there to just within bullseye. This is a funny hole because it looks very open, but it's quite common that players find trees on either the right or left side. As we see Birgit from deep, a good solid bid, honest bid there, fading just outside the bullseye. We have Nikola up first now on the green.
That's a good putt there, and you can see just how close the woods are on the right side of the basket. It's no less than 5 meters away from the basket that the woods start, and you can see just how thick the rough is again on this hole. Unfortunately, Katka missing it from 5 meters. Not very common from her. I feel like she's not really one to miss those short putts.
Yeah, normally quite confident on the green as well as off the tee. Katka with a solid commitment to her shots. Birgit finds the 3. Marianne with a fantastic looking birdie there.
Yeah, she was well inside the bullseye there, and even with the short putt taking her time, making sure to put it in the middle. That's a great couple of birdies in a row from her.
Shaping the back nine really nicely, setting a champion level pace. We continue to hole 13, a 195 meter par 5 with considerable trouble, one of the most difficult holes on the course. A great tee shot will battle towards this mound that divides the fairway roughly in half, then shaping a second shot over the high floor under the low ceiling. A very precise height is required to progress down the fairway, where you have this fallen tree as a final obstacle before you find the green tucked away up on the hill to the right. This is a really hard fairway to get any significant distance off with each shot. You really just feel like you're battling your way down the fairway. A lot of scrambles to be had for a majority of the field. It really rewards staying in the middle.
Yes, in the middle, certainly the most important thing, staying in the middle, as we see Marianne getting a great kick from the right side of the fairway. She was heading towards the right side rough, which is actually significantly less thick than some of the other rough on the course if you go far enough. But still a good kick to get into the fairway. As we see Nikola going into the casual water. There's no OB on this hole, so the water that you see on the fairway is just casual from the rain that we've had on the course prior to the tournaments.
Meaning they will get relief without the penalty stroke. We saw Birgit there fade just before that casual relief water. Katka now playing the wider gap to the left as she shapes between these two trees and swings it back towards the fairway. She is also just shy of that water and will have a good position to try and attack over this hill now. As she'll shape likely another Anheuser backhand. She'll want this to hold the turn for as long as possible, fighting through.
Unfortunately, just hitting the low ceiling. I feel like going over the mound is certainly the most difficult part of this hole, since you have a low ceiling and a high floor, so the airspace that your disc can travel through is very limited. Marianne pulling it to the left, but getting a kick into the middle of the fairway. She's on top of the mound, so that's going to be a good chance to advance to the fairway. Looks like Birgit is actually going outside left, not going for the intended gap, but finding some other route.
An untraditional line, but looks like she may have fought her way over the mound. She's contending with that rough if she doesn't complete her shape, but we'll see what she's left with, as I believe Marianne, with a slightly low shot but getting some skip, fights her way up there just before the fallen log. We see Nikola now at the top of the mound, going to battle this low ceiling. You see, really tough to progress there. She needs to throw with a nose down angle to beat the ceiling, but she'll quickly find the floor, if not the top, and she finds the top dropping down.
Yeah, and Katka here also with a bit of a higher shot, fading off to the left. Especially from the top of that mound, it is super difficult to get the height correct because you want to throw level, but in order to beat the low ceiling, you have to throw downwards, which means that it's almost impossible to get any great distance from there. Birgit progressing down the fairway.
And she was in a great result with that untraditional line, so good on her for her creativity and versatility, finding some lines that maybe other players aren't taking.
Yeah, and good knowledge of the course. I would have not probably known that line.
As we see her now again crashing into the green with the forehand hyzer, does not fade in time, but will have an obstructed look back towards the basket uphill.
And Katka here, very comfortable shot, being able to go to the green with a backhand hyzer. There's a significant backstop on the right side of the green, so these forehand slash left-hand hyzer shots are really able to almost run the basket and still stay close. Marianne there crashing into the hillside. She will have a tester putt left for the 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, and Nikola, so confident from those circle 2, circle 3 putts, gives it a very confident bid just off the band. As Birgit cashes out the right side, hits strong side chains and throws her arm up, slightly confused by the result, as we see Marianne secure her par there. A fine score here on hole 13, the most difficult on the course.
Yeah, this hole is actually the 5th most difficult hole, averaging 0.67 strokes above par, so the par 5 almost playing as a birdie on this hole. Really rarely birdied hole actually. It was not birdied in this competition, at least in this round, so par really serves as the birdie on this hole. Unfortunate bogey there for Birgit, but this is another hole where the bogey really does not sting as bad as some other holes.
On the horizon, dawn is breaking, a brand new day. The best kept secrets of the Croatian Adriatic are waiting to be discovered.
Be sure to check out Vol Tours if you're ever interested in visiting beautiful Croatia. We are here on hole 14, a 158-meter par 4. You have this initial straight to softwards leftward finishing shot off the tee. A great shot will land right about here, dissecting the hole in half, where you're left with roughly 70 meters through another low-ceiling, tight tunnel fairway to a tucked-away green, with some final guardians on the right and left to beat. This is 2 placement shots with a mid-range or fairway that battles low to the ground, up, keeping it tight. A hole that keeps you very honest, but with 2 straight shots can find you a birdie.
Off the drive, you would really prefer landing closer to the middle or right side of the fairway. Marianne there is located in the middle of the fairway, slightly shorter than she would like. You would really like to get about 70 to 75 meters off the drive here, because as we saw on the drone flight, as Katka goes just into the right side of the fairway, as we saw on the drone flight, the fairway gets tighter and tighter the longer you go. So the further you can throw your drive, the easier time you're going to have with the approach. But fortunately, Nikola going towards the left side there in the bushes.
And Birgit now, having seen a few various lines, finding one of her own, she flips this one up to flat, has a beautiful height, a good hyzer angle, and a solid forwards pushing skip to position herself perfectly off the tee. That is an ideal shot for Birgit. We see now Nikola going to that straddle and hyzer forehand, trying to keep this one safely in the fairway. Looks like a slightly sharper disc though, I think, still fighting for some distance.
Yeah, I think she's on the right side of the fairway now, and hopefully a chance to save the par there. Marianne going with a very aggressive shot there, possibly trying to get it to putting distance. Unfortunately, puts it left side of the fairway into the rough, and once again on this hole. The rough is very thick. If you're even a meter or two off the fairway, you're very likely to be forced to pitch out into the fairway, maybe even sideways or backwards.
As Birgit finds the lone stump in the fairway, unable to complete her flight, that is at a really awkward height depending on your distance, because you don't have a lot of height to play with. You do play kind of close to the ground here, and that can come into play.
Nikola there with a good height on the shot, but just hyzering out early and hitting one of the last guardian trees on the left side. Looks like Birgit has the same faith there. Unfortunately, the left side, short left side of the green does really not allow for many runs to the basket, so these players are likely going to be laying up from there.
And Katka with a really smooth backhand turnover has it pan out to flat at the end to complete its slide. She is parked. Really solid shot.
That's a good shot there. It's the same yellow disc she has been using for the majority of her approaches. I wonder what that disc actually is.
We might get another look at it, have a chance to identify. We see Marianne there with the forehand approach, catching some of that high ceiling. We'll leave her with a tester putt. We see Nikola from way deep, really confident, tons of pace on all of these attacking putts. Circle 2, circle 3, it doesn't seem to stop her aggression.
Yeah, really good release and actually a pretty decent distance control there. Staying only 4 meters away from the basket, even with the aggressive run. Birgit with a similar thing, just fading around the basket. Let's see if Marianne can put this in. Unfortunately not having to settle for the bogey on this hole. It is not one of the easiest holes on the course. It's actually playing as the 4th most difficult hole on the course, averaging 0.78 strokes above par. So the par 4 here is a really good score, and if you can get the birdie, even better.
As we see some short putts now on tricky hole 14. I think definitely a difficult hole to birdie. While it looks very manageable, there's just so much potential trouble, so many factors that you need to pass in order to secure that elusive 3. We see Marianne now walking up to her final putt, putting it in also for bogey. 3 bogeys and 1 par here on hole 14.
Yeah, and this hole really showcases the common theme of the back 9. Shorter holes, but they're very tightly wooded, and even though the shots don't need to be very long, you have to be extremely precise with your angles and your release.
Talking of tightly wooded fairways, you see here the initial tunnel of hole 15, a 134 meter par 4. You want to shape a straight to leftwards finishing shot to try and enter into the second half of the fairway. You can navigate your way through any of these various gaps through the final trees depending on your placement. A lot of players will opt for a backhand off the tee and a forehand approach. For our left-handed players, vice versa, possibly a forehand off the tee. But Katka looking to shape a touchy turnover backhand. Really tough line as you need the late flip, but she has an incredible command of her discs and manages to keep it in the fairway.
Yeah, that was a great shot, and staying in the fairway on this hole again is the most important thing. Getting distance off the tee is good, but if you can stay on the fairway and get some distance, then you're really, really happy. And you can see Marianne, unfortunately, too straight, not really getting the turnover to the left towards the bigger part of the fairway. She'll have a couple trees in her way to contend with. And Nikola, unfortunately, with a very late release. That's a brutal result on this hole, because from there, I would imagine almost no chance of advancing down the fairway.
And worth mentioning, holes 13 through 16 having the thickest mosquitoes on the course at this time of year. Very dense and very thick. Even more punishing if you end up in the woods, as you do have a lot on the fairways, but even more in the rough. As we see Nikola now shaping an Anheuser backhand from that right side. The width of that tunnel is no more than 2 or 3 meters, so she unfortunately quite quickly finds a more rough on the left side. Finally now able to break out. We'll see her throw a forehand flex here.
Yeah, she has shown some of that forehand power earlier during this round, and another very powerful stroke there. Unfortunately, hyzering out to the woods on the right side. Although there are some gaps on the right side of the fairway, even though the initial or the main gap is on the left that we see Birgit going towards, also fading off to the right just slightly. But yeah, on this hole, if you can just, after landing the first shot on the fairway, if you can just chop down most of that distance left to the basket, you'll be really happy. Birgit
Katka now shaping a nice flip up to flat shot, progressing well to the fairway. I think a short approach or even jump putt to the green.
Yes, and you can see the fairway kind of opens up once you enter about halfway through that last tunnel. Marianne there with the high forehand anhyzer flex dropping down in the middle of the fairway. That's a very good result from there.
Nikola continuing to battle from the rough. We see her throw her forehand. Unsure of the result, we'll see what she's left with. Marianne, a nice hyzer backhand as she gently skips off that mound basket exactly right behind that tree, hidden for a moment. That is a perfect upshot.
Yeah, that was a great touch there, and the approach is really well set up for the left hand backhand hyzer. Although even with the approach, there is a very low ceiling that you have to avoid. As we see, Birgit was playing on the right side of the fairway, finding some of her own gaps. And Katka, with just a perfect touch on the approach, actually throwing the same disc 3 times in a row on this hole and getting the par. That's a great example of finding that one disc that you're really comfortable with and sticking to it.
And Nikola again looking as if she caught metal from that deep, deep putt. She has been finding lots of that today, unable to translate all of them to made putts, but still very good on her to give it a bid and find some metal. As we see Katka tap in her par there, just 3 or 4 meters long of the green, and you begin to enter this very thick rough, forcing an awkward angle on the putt. We see a double bogey for Nikola there as she battled through that initial tunnel with 3 shots. Good on her to complete the second leg of the fairway fairly clean after the initial troubles.
Yeah, it's even though the distance is quite short for a par 4, it's a really demanding hole. And we saw great examples of how punishing the rough can be if you're off the fairway. Birgit there with the bogey. Not the worst score, but certainly a hole you would like to get the par or the birdie on.
We continue now to hole 16, an 88-meter par 3. You have this initial straight shot that then you need to pierce through this gap between the 2 trees here. You'll then see the fairway begin to bend left. Anything that goes too straight or doesn't fade too early will find its way nicely up here into the green. You really need to control and time your hyzer fade nicely. I think a tricky hole for our left-handed players if they're not comfortable leaning on the forehand.
Yeah, this hole certainly favors the right-handed player as they are able to hit the gap and let the disc naturally fade towards the basket. Katka going with the opposite shot, trying to hit the gap and stay straight, but unfortunately looks like she has gone towards the left side of the gap, which is... It's possible that she's in a really thick rough. If you go just 2 or 3 meters left of the gap, it is really thick, but she might be on the edge as well. Marianne there with the powerful forehand just on the inside corner of the curve of the fairway, but luckily on the edge of the fairway, and she'll have a run at the basket or an easy par if she wants it.
Birgit with a low-released shot, looking to play the skip, catches some of that right side rough, firing a little bit too straight, but I do like the height, and I find the skip to be fairly reliable, one of the few fairways where you do get significant ground play.
As we see Nikola also just slightly inside on the left side. If you want to get to the basket, you do have to play it inside, but that was just a bit too ambitious there. Katka with an anhyzer approach around the bushy tree on the edge of the fairway.
Nikola, the solid jump putt to position herself right up there in bullseye. We see Birgit now, what she's left with. Also a jump putt, full body. She extends the arm. A little bit too much action on the elbow hinge there. Looks to have opened it up, but swings it back in nicely, well positioned for a shorter putt as well.
Let's see if Marianne gives it a run there. Certainly running it aggressive, low run there. A lot of speed on the disc there, but settling just 5 or 6 meters from the basket. And Katka with the important putt here and makes the par. That's a really good save there after the errant drive and a slightly worse than expected approach. Able to clean up the par with a great putt.
She's been clean, unable to pick up any birdies here on this back nine. Katka has shown a solid scramble game, just a few bogeys, found her some trouble, as we see Marianne, our leader, not taking any damage there, securing her putt as well.
Marianne playing a very solid round, as we saw, -2 for the round. That's a great score to be at this point.
As this is one of the final hard holes, 15 and 16 is a stretch that you can birdie but requires some really magnificent touch and accuracy. We see a par there from Nikola and from Birgit. We now get to another hole which is very possibly birdieable. It does only say 82 meters for this par 3, but with a tight tunnel shot the whole way, as well as a strangely low ceiling. You do see a lot of vertical space in this drone shot, but at different distances throughout the tunnel, the ceiling changes heights, and it's very tough to gauge off the tee really how much height you can utilize at any given time. This low ceiling and narrow fairway means that you need a straight, low shot.
Yeah, on this hole, many players looking forward to disc up to a faster disc to challenge the low ceiling. Katka there went with a really fast routine. Looks like she hit some foliage on the left side of the fairway. Marianne Heiser flipping perfectly through the gap, unfortunately just turning too far left at the end, catching one of the last trees on the left side. It is a very tricky hole, since even though the distance is not far, it's insanely tight and requires just perfect angle control because the disc has to be going straight for the whole way.
Also, one of the slickest tees on the course. The muddy conditions and the many days of play have contributed to a slippery tee. So also conscious of your footing here on hole 17, as we see a nice forehand fading out a touch early, but battling all the way up there to the open green. Will be a putt for birdie for, I believe, Nikola. And Birgit now trying to scramble to secure her par, does well to battle up to the green as well.
Yeah, she has a good look for the par there. Very impressive forehand there by Nikola, since the forehand is kind of difficult to keep straight for such a long distance, but she was able to do it off the drive well. As we see Katka with a good touchy approach there. Marianne just running it for the birdie there, unfortunately coming up just short. Let's see Nikola. Her putting has been pretty good this round. I guess she's gonna give it a great chance to go in on this one. Unfortunately, just pulls it to the right. Real good speed, perfect height, but just catches the right side nubs of the cage.
Oh, and a little raz for Katka there. The runner on the path to the left caught her attention as she refocuses herself right in the chains. Really nice focus there to balance out her mindset as she's briefly distracted, brings it back in nicely.
Yeah, Katka, truly a great inside the circle putter. Really taking care of business inside 10 meters. Birgit with looked like a bit of a rushed stroke there. A little bit hesitant on the follow through. Looking to make the next one here. Hopefully able to clear the head. And does it nicely. Very confident stroke there. Very important after airballing from inside the circle to get that next putt in the middle.
Yeah, definitely one that you want to make sure to put your putt in here. On 17, you see Birgit walk away with a bogey on what could be considered one of the easier holes, not without its danger, but also one where the 3 is fairly manageable. Nikola, Katka taking par. We see Marianne here for her 3 as well.
Yeah, it's again a very commonly parred hole, even though it's very birdieable. The birdie really requires a precise shot right down the middle of the fairway, and it's rare to see somebody inside the circle, as we see a long birdie look for Nikola, but no birdies there.
And we close it out here on hole 18. A 95 meter par 3, you have this initial gap to hit about 40 meters off the fairway. If you can penetrate through that small gap, you break out into this open field where you have a slightly elevated basket as well as the arena right behind. This is a great shot to test where your game is at the end of the round, as you need to hit a very small tunnel here.
Yeah, this is one of the smallest gaps on the entire course. Looks like Katka is going with the aggressive low shot there. Very important to keep the disc low here since the ceiling is very low. Typical for this course. This is actually the third most difficult hole on the course, averaging almost a full stroke above the par 3.
We see our leader here, Marianne, with an early tree kick off to the left. Will find herself in the rough, not yet into that open field.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate tree kick and quite a rare place to land. Most of the tree kicks on this hole seem to be directing towards the right side for some reason. Especially the big tree on the left that's an absolute disc magnet. Many people hitting it. But Nikola fortunately hitting in the middle of the gap. Just a little bit high in the branches there, but she'll be in the open, looking forward to getting the par 3.
Hole 18 definitely shaping nicely for the forehand here. We see Birgit pushing this one, breaks out into the open field, but just tucked away between those two trees, still probably 40 or so meters from the basket. Marianne here, hoping to put herself close, but with very little gaps to play into. She is sending the Sky Enheiser out, and she fades a touch left. She will be pinched off from the green, still requiring about 50 or 60 to make it up there. You see what Katka is left with here.
Katka in a decent position on the right side of the initial gap. Unfortunately pulling her approach quite far to the left, so it's a very long putt to the elevated basket on 18. Not a very high elevated basket, but still something to mess with your mind for a bit.
Marianne from a really tough position. You saw that fence in her way, needing to go over that. Her nose up hyzer fading out a touch early. She'll be at about circle's edge with a straddle putt to secure her bogey.
Yeah, that's a long putt for the bogey there, and Nikola putting it inside the circle to hopefully save the par on the demanding hole 18 here. Birgit also with a solid forehand approach shell, showcasing a good touch at the end of the round.
We see now Marianne with the awkward stance, just a little bit low and left off the cage. She'll be tapping in a double bogey to end, leaving her with a score similar to where she started round 2, flat even.
Yeah, and that's not a round you should be ashamed of. Being under par on this course is magnificent, and par is just fine. You're gaining many strokes on the field with a par. Nikola there missing from edge of the circle, but making the next one for the bogey. That's a good putt to hopefully just get that little bit of confidence going into the round 3.
As we see Birgit approaching her short putt, has had some troubles on the back 9, unable to find a birdie. As she puts this one in for par, she will be ending her round at 7 over. By no means a bad round, but not quite at that champion level pace which Marianne is setting.
Yeah, Marianne really almost head and shoulders above the rest of the field on this course. You can really see she's utilizing that distance that she has over the rest of the field and really paying off, having a 6-stroke lead over the card.
And a well-rounded game as we close out round 2. We take a look at the standings. Marianne sitting in the solo lead position, 6 strokes above Katka in second, 9 strokes over Andrea in third, Nikola sneaking into solo 4th, Birgit in 5th, and some names beyond there. Very technical course and a tough battle with tricky conditions here in round 2. Make sure to catch us in round 3, where we will crown our next PDGA Euro Tour champion. What a fight.
Yeah, what a fight, and potential for a lot of new names on the winners table. And see you guys in round 3.